All right, it's 10 o'clock. Good morning, y'all. We are very happy to have Chuck Pollock here to help talk through Scoutbook with y'all. If you have questions as we go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will make sure that your questions get answered. So with that, go ahead, Chuck, and you can take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Talking about Scoutbook this morning, and let's just jump right in. First, I want to talk about me for just a second so you know who I am. I am a scouter, just like you guys, volunteer. I've been involved with scouting for longer than I care to imagine, probably 15 years or so. The current positions I hold, or you see them on your screen, I'm a Assistant Scoutmaster in Troop 430. I was Scoutmaster for about 3.5 years and only recently stepped down and passed the torch on that one. And through my scouting tenure, I've held a variety of leadership positions in the units I've been involved with, including advancement chair, which the advancement chair really goes right to the heart of Scoutbook that we'll see. I'm also familiar with one of the other commercial products that many troops have used and some still do use to keep track of advancement, which is Troopmaster. In fact, I was with a troop that used Troopmaster while I was advancement chair, and then we transitioned over to Scoutbook. So I'm familiar with both of them. And one other thing about me is I am not an IT or computer professional. What I've learned about Scoutbook is mostly just on my own and asking questions on some user groups and poking around a lot. So whatever I do today is really just my own experience with Scoutbook. And hopefully as a leader, I could pass that on to you guys. Finally, because I'm a volunteer, because I'm a scouter, should I make any editorial comments about Scoutbook or scouting, those are just mine. Please don't attribute those to the council or the district or my troop or anything organized officially with scouting. So what Scoutbook is and isn't. First of all, Scoutbook is owned by the Scouts. It's owned by the BSA. I don't believe it originally was, but it is now. And because it is somewhat integrated with internet advancement. That means when you enter advancement information in Scoutbook, it will get synced with internet advancement. Now, for those of you who may be familiar with Scout, Troopmaster, or other third-party reporting, advancement tracking software, things of that nature, where you had to create a file and upload it to internet advancement, you don't need to do that with Scoutbook. It is all automatic. It is free to scouting units and to parents. It didn't used to be free. And in fact, the last time my troop paid for an annual fee, the BSA announced it would be free about a month later. So it is free now, really to encourage everyone to use it. But most of all, what Scoutbook is, it's a tool. It's one more arrow in your quiver to help run your troop, keep track of advancement, both for leaders and for parents and for scouts. So it is very helpful. Now, Scoutbook isn't perfect. It is very much a work in progress. Every time I log on, it seems like every time at least, I get a little message at the top of the screen saying that Scoutbook will be down for maintenance for a certain amount of time, maybe just a couple hours. So it is constantly being updated. That's a good thing, but it is not perfect now. And we're working towards, I guess BSA is working towards getting it perfect. I know there are tons of adult volunteers that give input about things that could help improve Scoutbook. Also, Scoutbook is not fully integrated with internet advancement, or at least not yet. I believe that's something that is on the horizon. Of course, can't give you a date or a time on that. Don't have that inside information. But in particular, you can keep track of camping nights and things like that in Scoutbook, but at least in my experience, I've also had to go to internet advancement and recreate those events and add the scouts that I attended in internet advancement so that I would keep internet advancement up to date with those. Those things are sometimes important for such things as Order of the Arrow, where you need to track camping nights. So the logs are not fully integrated, not yet, but hopefully they will be someday in the not too distant future. So some of the basics on Scoutbook. First, it's an online tool. You access it online at the link there, which means you could access it from a computer, desktop. You could access it from an iPad. You could access it from your phone. So it's really great because I like, when we go on camping trips, I'll have my phone with me and I could update things on Scoutbook almost in real time when the scout earns an advancement. The other thing is I'll take my iPad to our troop meetings, and if I'm working with a scout on a rank advancement or a merit badge and they complete the advancement, I could update Scoutbook right there. Of course, what we tell people, what we tell our scouts and reinforce to them is that your official record is your scout handbook, and your official record are the blue cards from the merit badges. So in the event there was ever some sort of catastrophe with Scoutbook, they still had those written records. So that's very important that the written records should still be maintained by the scouts, even though we're keeping electronic records in Scoutbook. The other thing with Scoutbook, and again, getting back to it's not perfect, well, to make it a little bit closer to perfect or getting a lot better is something called Feature Assistant for Scoutbook. It's an add-on in Firefox or an extension in Chrome if you use either of those browsers, and it adds a tremendous amount of flexibility and functionality to Scoutbook. I highly recommend you add that if you're using Scoutbook on either of those browsers. You could go to the browser's store and just search for it. It's called Feature Assistant for Scoutbook, or just search for Scoutbook. I'm sure it'll come up. That was actually written by a volunteer. It's maintained by a volunteer. I can tell you on a personal level, I've had some questions about some things in the Feature Assistant that I've just emailed the volunteer that developed it, and he responded to me within a couple of hours. And I know in one case it was a bug and he fixed the bug right away. So he's very responsive to it. And it is an excellent add-on if you choose to use Scoutbook. So just to give you an example, a couple examples, there's a feature in Scoutbook we'll talk about. It's called Quick Entry. And the column on the left is what you would see if you have Feature Assistant. The column on the right is without Feature Assistant. So you can see it just adds a lot more functionality. That's in Quick Entry. Again, we'll talk about that. And similarly with reporting, it adds a little bit more functionality as well. There are other places within Scoutbook where the Feature Assistant adds functionality that I'll mention as we get into the program a little bit more. So my troop uses Scoutbook in some big areas, but I'm thinking that we probably don't use all of Scoutbook, and there are some things that we're just scratching the surface on. So what we use Scoutbook for is advancement, basically tracking advancement, reporting, which would include reporting advancement, which of course we talked about, that's integrated with internet advancement, but also sometimes a scout or a scout parent or a leader will want a report of a particular scout, how they're doing. Have they advanced recently? What are the items that need to be completed to earn a particular rank or a merit badge? Scoutbook could do all sorts of reports like that. The next thing we use it for is event scheduling and RSVPs. We put our troop meetings on Scoutbook. We put our outings on Scoutbook. There's a calendar feature that we'll talk about. It allows the scouts to RSVP. We like to know who's coming for certain events, particularly on campouts. And as we'll talk about and show later on, when you do the RSVPs, you could also generate a report of who's in attendance. And those things are really useful for district or council events. When you check in and they say, give us a roster of who's here. Well, if you use Scoutbook, you could print a roster with just a couple of clicks. And the roster, as you'll see, has a lot of information on it. It has the Scouts information, and then it has parent contact information that you may need for an emergency. So it's very helpful. And then the last thing we really use it for is communications. There's a messaging feature in Scoutbook that we use. I use it frequently. We use it for just sending out emails to the troop as a whole, sometimes to particular scouts, sometimes to our PLC, Patrol Leader Council. Scoutbook is very useful for that. And particularly with the event scheduling, you could send out reminders. You could set up an event that says, send a reminder a day before or a week before that you need to register for a camp out, or that something is happening tomorrow. There's a service project or an Eagle work day. You could set all those, and Scoutbook will automatically send out emails. So the other thing with communications is, and I'll show this, in addition to emails, there are so many scouts that have text messaging that they may not look at their email at all, but they'll see their text on their phone. And you could actually send out text messages in Scoutbook as well. So that's really helpful. But those are the big 4 areas that we use Scoutbook for. The other thing, and I didn't mention it about Scoutbook, one of the benefits is because it's a BSA product, they have built-in youth protection into Scoutbook in terms of looking at data, in terms of communications, because of course, as we all know, when you communicate with a scout, as a leader to a scout, you're not supposed to have one-on-one communications. So when you do communicate with a scout, it automatically copies that scout's parents or guardian, which is a really nice feature.
Hey, Chuck, we had a couple of questions in the chat about the assistant. One is, does it mean that no feature assistant is needed if you use Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer?
I am not familiar if the feature assistant is available for those browsers. I personally, I use Firefox. Occasionally I use Chrome. On rare occasions, I use the Microsoft products, but I have never looked to see if that feature assistant add-on is available in either Edge or the other Microsoft browsers.
The other question was, how do we download the feature assistant?
Well, if you go to your browser's store for the add-ons, there will be instructions on how to download it. Usually it's just clicking on it and it will download it. And when you use Scoutbook, that add-on will automatically load. It senses you're using Scoutbook. And remember, I'm not a computer professional or an IT guy, so it automatically loads once the feature assistant is installed. So nothing you have to do. On occasion, and I'll show you in just a second, but on occasion, there may be a hiccup with it loading slowly. And if you just refresh your page, it'll load just fine. But I'll show you how to tell if feature assistant is actually working or not when we get into the videos, which is coming up. Were there any other questions right now? I can't see the chat. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. All right. So this is how my troop uses Scoutbook. And let's just kind of jump in. What I've done here is I was concerned that there may be a technical hiccup. So I've recorded in real time when I did it, some features of Scoutbook and how my troop uses them. These are recordings, but they were done in a real-time fashion. They're just, screen recordings. And I'll kind of narrate and point out some things as we go along. So first one is when you go to the website, this is what you'll see. And you just simply log in right up there in the corner. Let me also mention there is a help website, which is at the bottom of the page here. So when you log in, this is screen recording. I'm going to log in on my account. This is just kind of what it looks like. The first screen they'll take you is right here. At the top, my dashboard, that's what we're going to click on in just a second. But you see there are also links to my scouting homepage and internet advancement up there as well. And they also use what's called that single sign-on, one password and log on, username and log on password for all three of those activities. So it's easy to kind of jump from one to the other. We're going to click on my dashboard, and then it takes you to this screen here. Now this is on my account. Yours may look different. On the left side, you see it says merit badge counseling. I'm also a merit badge counselor, so I have those options for merit badges. And then on the right side, it says my units. Because I'm a leader in two different units, being an assistant scoutmaster in one, which is the troop, and being a unit commissioner in the pack, both of my units are listed there. So if you're not a leader in multiple units, you will just see whatever units you're connected to in that area. So let's go look at my troop. And when I log in to my troop, I'll see this. This is kind of the main page where all the videos after this one will start from. Of course, at the top, first thing first, they have upcoming events in the calendar right there. And then all the patrols in our troop are listed right there. The other thing is, because I'm with multiple units, right at the top here, it tells me what unit I'm looking at. And I can actually pull that down to switch to my other unit. So we're going to click on the Pepper Patrol, which happens to be my son's patrol. And I'm going to show you how we do advancement. There he is. And his individual page will load. So we basically just scroll down to his advancement right there in the center and just click on that. And it takes you, oops, I'm sorry. Let me scroll that ahead. It'll take you to his page. At the top, it just has some basic information, including his rank right there, how close he is to his next rank, how many merit badges he's earned. Up there, it indicates that he's a member of the Order of the Arrow. And then it also gives this area right here, which is a visual on what he's earned. So in addition to keeping track of rank advancements and merit badges, it will also keep track of special awards that may not be their official BSA awards, but they're not merit badges or ranks. So to track his advancement, you just scroll down to advancement, and then you'll see more detail on his advancement. I'm sorry, I told you I'm not a technical person. But here you can see more detail on his advancement, when he's earned certain ranks. And if you look underneath, it says when, rather who the leader approved it. So that's a real important feature of Scoutbook is if parents have access, they could enter advancements on their own. But at some point, a leader will need to actually approve that advancement for the Scout to get credit. So we encourage parents to download Scoutbook and use it for that purpose. And then the Scout could come to one of the leaders to actually approve it and tell them what they did. So the merit badges are right down there. And it shows ones that are completed, which have that check mark, and the ones which are in progress, which don't have a check mark. But on the right side, it does show how much has been completed. So they're on the way to getting done. Here, if I click on his Eagle Scout rank, which is his next rank, hopefully, again, it shows you what's been completed and what hasn't been by the check marks. And right at the bottom there, you see an area where you can add notes and comments. One of the things we do with our scouts is if they go to, let's say they go to a merit badge clinic and they earn a merit badge, what we'll ask them to do, and they get their blue card signed off, what we'll ask them to do is actually take a photograph of the completed merit badge card and upload it to the page on their advancement for that merit badge. That's just further proof. It keeps a record of the advancement. It also allows an adult to later go in, an adult leader to later go in and approve it once they see the picture of the completed blue card, especially if the adult who's doing it isn't at the meeting where the scout shows up. And we actually have an advancement person that doesn't come to every meeting, unfortunately. So that's the comment section. And there's one for each, there's a comment area in each merit badge, and there's a comment area in the rank advancements as well. So there you see, let's click on the citizenship in the community, for example. That's one that's in progress. And you can see that the blue checks, the blue boxes checked are the items that he's completed. And then there's some others that are not checked. So if you look at number 7, for example, right there, it's not checked, but some of the subparts are. And unfortunately, or maybe it's fortunately, I don't know, but you can't check an item that has subparts without checking all of the individual subparts that need to be completed to having achieved that item. So at the top of the page right now, where you see my cursor right there, excuse me. At the top of the page, you could actually switch. There's his name and his patrol and the troop. You could click on those as well to switch back to the entire patrol or to click to the entire troop even. So it's kind of a fast navigation thing. So it'll also record leadership. And of course, leadership is an important part of advancement when you get to first class and above. Once you record a leadership position, it will match it up with the rank and the number of days. So you could complete, if it says, serve 6 months as a position of responsibility, you could record that. One thing it won't do is it won't take this leadership information and sort of check the box on the rank advancement. You need to do that on your own, but you could see here that it's been completed, if it's been completed. I'm just going to go back to his advancement here. It'll also record training. So Evan's been to NYLT. It records it right there. It also syncs with the BSA database on that, which is ScoutNet. So I know training for the youth, there's less of this training than for adults, but Scoutbook will keep up with both youth and adult training. Reporting. You can see there, it's similar to the reports that we showed earlier when I was talking about Feature Assistant. All of these reports, because I'm on the individual Scout page, these are reports only for this Scout that you're on their page. And I think most of them are self-explanatory, which you can see right here. I would encourage you to play around with them a little bit, because in the reporting, and we'll see it, there are options of how things are reported and how things are sorted. You're not going to hurt anything by going and picking a report and running it in a couple of different formats to see which works best for your situation. But let me point out one really neat feature, and I've been using Scoutbook for, oh gosh, almost 4 years, and I actually just saw this feature within the past month or two, and it's right down here. Eagle application. You could use Scoutbook to generate a near fully completed Eagle application when your Scout's ready for it. For those that don't know what the Eagle application includes, it's not a very long application, but part of it is the date you've earned each of the merit badges that are required for Eagle. It talks about in the application leadership positions, whether you were a Cub Scout, when you joined Scouting. If all those dates are in Scoutbook, when you click on that link to generate an Eagle application, it pulls all that information from the Scout's record. And because that Scout's record is synced with Internet Advancement on ranks and merit badges, you know all the dates will be correct. So it's a pretty cool feature. Again, one I only recently discovered.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes.
One thing that I did find out from somebody on that feature is that the parents have to go in there and give their kids access to be able to get that uploaded. So there is an extra piece that parents have to do on that.
Okay.
And then I got a question here. We don't have an advancement chair. What suggestions / lessons learned do you have to help keep a pack manage everything, manage entering advancement in Scoutbook?
I could tell you as someone that was Scoutmaster for 3 years, most of the advancement information was information I entered. Our troop does have an advancement chair. She's actually a parent of a Scout that earned Eagle maybe 2 years ago. So she does not come to the meetings. Very, very rarely would she come to the meeting. And she's not actually recording the advancements as much as she's preparing us for Courts of Honor by getting the patches and filling out the cards and things like that. So, you know, in a, it could be the assistant scoutmaster that's assigned to that patrol if you do that, or a den leader that's assigned to a den, they could be entering it. It could be any one of the key three, which are, you know, the Scoutmaster, Chartered Org Rep, or Committee Chair. That role can be assigned, and you don't need to have a designated advancement chair, although, you know, it would help to have that, I think, at least in most cases. One thing that Charity just touched on about Scouts and Scoutbook, and this has been not really a pet peeve, but kind of a thing I've hammered home with all of our parents, is as a leader, I cannot add Scouts to Scoutbook. Let me repeat that. As a leader, I cannot add Scouts to Scoutbook. Only a parent can. I could add a parent, and that parent, once they log into Scoutbook, they could put their youth on their account, and then they could invite them to join Scoutbook. It's a youth protection thing where the parent has to invite the Scout. Now, I encourage the parents to do, and every time I talk to the parents, I almost beg them to add their Scouts to Scoutbook, really for the communication aspect. Because even if we don't communicate with the Scouts in Scoutbook, we still can keep track of all their advancements because they're on the roster. They're a registered youth in Scouting. So they'll be on the roster. It's just an issue of whether they get the emails, the communications we send out. And it's also of whether or not they can update their own records. And again, some of the Scouts, a lot of the Scouts in our troop at least, have the ability to update their own records once they're connected. So it's helpful to have the Scout as a member, but I could see where if, especially with the younger Scouts, the parents may not want them to be. So that's it with recording advancements. It's not very tough. You just sort of find your Scout and click on them, and there's a lot of clicking involved, I have to say that, which makes it pretty easy. It's a little tedious at times. I'll talk about one kind of workaround on the tedious aspect of that in just a second, though. So, and that would be with on our next slide, which is reporting and recording bulk advancement updates. So again, starting from the same slide, or the same kind of home page where your troop information is. It's telling me I can't play my media. Well, I'm going to try and switch over to maybe a live session then. Just 1 second. So can you see this is my live session? Is everyone able to see that, Charity? Hello?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so reporting advancement. Starting from this kind of main screen for my troop, and again, this is live, this is not my recording. So we saw the last bit how it was done for an individual, but there's a way to do it in a bulk fashion, especially when you're using Feature Assistant. And let me just show you, I mentioned it earlier. If you're using Feature Assistant, you'll see this at the bottom of the screen or something like it. That's a notice that Feature Assistant is actually working. If you don't see that, then you won't see it. If you don't see it, then Feature Assistant is not there. So look at the bottom of the screen. If it's not working, just refresh your page and it should start. I haven't had that problem lately, but I have in the past once or twice. So in order to do for reports, I find it really easy to click on this button right here, Troop Roster, and then it will load a roster of all my Scouts in the troop. I have mine here sorted alphabetically by first name. If you click up here, you could sort it in another way. It's not divided by patrols at all. So you see our leaders, our Scouts, and then basically the reporting's pretty easy. You could print a roster if you need it. I know that there are probably some troops that will print a roster and circulate it for everyone. It could have.
Hey, Chuck, your screen's not changing.
Oh. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Well, let me get back here. All right. So now, for some reason, my PowerPoint is working.
There we go.
All right. I'm sorry for all these technical issues. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So we're getting ready to print a roster. And the roster feature, you see the interface, it looks entirely different than Scoutbook. My guess is this is more like internet advancement. And perhaps I've been told that some of the features are actually written in a different type of programming language. But if you go to print a roster, this is what you'll see. And again, there's lots of settings. You could check the box or not check the box to see what information you want, whether you want one including adults or just Scouts. Again, I'd encourage you to really explore and play around with the feature. And then, of course, you could, once you've made your selections, you could run the report. You could save the report so that others could actually see it as well, or you could run it another time. from, and there's a roster builder and a report builder. This is back from the main screen. So they're both very helpful. They're a little bit different. And if you want to do multiple scouts at once, you can. You can go on here, you can click all at the top or select your individual scouts and run reports on whatever you've selected. And then I believe it gives you the option of downloading it, or there it is, or opening it. And you could do either one. So let's back out of that. So the bulk entry of advancements is really something that's very helpful. I'll talk about that in a second. Let me just look at one of the reports here. It's an OA, Order of the Arrow, eligibility report. So we know that our troops do, and I guess crews do OA elections every year. And their requirements for OA are 15 nights of camping within the last 2 years and first class rank. This report will allow you to determine who in your troop or crew is eligible. So you would just want to set the election date right there at the top of the screen, and then you could refresh the report and it will tell you who is eligible. The neat thing about that is if you have a camping trip coming up, and this actually happened in our troop. I ran the report a couple of weeks before we had a camping trip, and it turned out there were a couple of scouts that were 1 night short of being eligible for OA. So I was able to go to those scouts and saying, hey, if you go on a camping trip, you will make the eligibility cutoff for the OA elections, which are coming up. And the scouts went on the camping trip, and I believe at least one of them was selected as a candidate for OA. That's a really useful report, I believe. A lot of these reports can be run in PDF or in CSV, which is comma separated values, and that could be imported into an Excel spreadsheet. And then you could work with the data that way, sorting it or organizing it or filtering it however you need. Merit badges, another area where you could generate a report of who's missing what for a particular merit badge, for incomplete ones. And especially if they're working as a group, then you could generate that report. It could be helpful in planning your meetings or planning your activities. But again, I'd encourage you just to kind of poke around, play around with the reporting, because it's actually pretty powerful and it has gotten better over time. I could tell you when Scoutbook first started, I was very disappointed with the reporting compared to Troopmaster, but it has gotten better. So again, I think I showed this before. You could go and click on individual reports within the patrol. Now, one of the things that you saw, there's a lot of clicks, and one of the ways to get around a lot of clicks is right here with this quick entry. That is from Feature Assistant. And quick entry is great because if you have kids that go to summer camp, scouts that go to summer camp, and they do mountaineer, which is what they called at Woodruff, where they work on advancement items for the first few scouting ranks, really all the way up to first class. And they come back with a laundry list of achievements. The quick entry will allow you to enter all that information on one screen for all those scouts. It cuts down on the clicks in a very significant way. You could also use a quick entry to enter multiple checkoffs for a single scout, whether it's for a rank or a merit badge. So let's take a look at it. So let's look at a rank requirement. You just pick the rank right there. So I picked scout rank. And you could just check off those boxes on the right. You check off the names of the scouts that have completed those items, and then you save it. You could add notes such as completed at Mountaineer, Woodruff Scout Camp. Note this warning at the bottom. You want to be careful that you're doing it correctly, because if not, then you will need to go back into each individual scout and fix it. So you could do the same thing for merit badges, whether they are completed merit badges. So you have a group of scouts that has gone to a merit badge clinic and they have all completed the badge, or for partial merit badges, same idea. And you see up there, you could use it for health form data. If you have a stack of health forms, you need to enter them the good through dates before you go to camp, or basically the swimming. Our troop likes to do our swim tests before we go to summer camp. Here I'm showing you about leadership positions. Again, you could, when you have troop elections, you could update all your new leadership positions on one screen. It is a big, big, big time saver. So that is kind of the bulk advancement updating and reporting. Charity, if there's any questions about that, I take them now, or we could.
There is a question about if they use a troop management website for most of their troop information, so they don't enter the advancement into Scoutbook. What is the best way to record camping nights and service activity in Scoutbook?
Yeah, honestly, if they use a website to record a lot of it, you know, a third party, not Scoutbook, my suggestion would be just to sort of bypass Scoutbook and go to internet advancement, because it's been my experience, at least currently, that the camping nights, for example, you could enter them in Scoutbook, but they don't sync with internet advancement. So when I showed you the OA eligibility report, I knew that we had a couple of scouts that the numbers just didn't look right. And sure enough, I had their information in Scoutbook, but what we had failed to do is we had failed to go into internet advancement. And in internet advancement, we needed to actually create an event and check the scouts that attended. And then once I did that, it corrected my OA eligibility report. It happened because there was a camp out that no one had ever created an event in Scoutbook. So all those scouts that went camping were not reflected in their logs. So that's why I'd say for now, bypass Scoutbook entirely for keeping track of camping nights. If you do a third-party troop management, that may be a web-based thing. If you use Scoutbook, I would still encourage you to use Scoutbook to record it. But right now, until they're fully integrated, you'll need to go and jump over to Internet Advancement, create the event, and plug in the names of the scouts that attended.
Hey, Chuck, it's Graham. So I'm just jumping around from breakouts, but I happened to jump into yours while you were talking about this topic. But yeah, just so you're aware, the camping, hiking, and service entries have actually been disabled in Scoutbook. So when you click on those links, it takes you directly to IA. So basically, all of that stuff now is captured in IA in an advancement. So your advice was not wrong. It's just you don't need to worry about it. If you click on it in Scoutbook, it just takes you to internet advancement anyway.
Okay.
And the advantage of doing it in internet advancement is that it also adds to your Journey to Excellence report.
All right. Thank you. I think that actually happened when I did that. Yeah. I didn't remember that it happened now that I'm talking about it. Yes.
There are a few peculiarities with it, like only Key 3 and admins can approve those. So any assistant scoutmaster or parent can enter those activities, but they only can be approved by certain people in the unit.
Right.
That's just something to be aware of. But parents and assistant leaders can definitely input the data.
All right, excellent, thank you. Hey, Charity, were there any other questions on this, or I'll move to the next?
No.
All right. All right, schedule events. This is really neat because, as we saw, here's our events upcoming right here. And you just you could schedule whatever's coming up. Just click on that top bar to go to your calendar. You can see what's on the calendar, you know, for the upcoming months. And then to add an event, click down the lower right, add the event, and this window will pop up. You pick what calendar, whether it's an entire unit calendar or maybe a particular patrol. So just for example, let's pick our entire troop, click set to save that. It automatically populated with troop meeting, probably because that was the last thing I had entered. But you could change that to any of these. And if none of those work, there's an other at the bottom. So again, let's pick camp out. We'll set that. It automatically, I'm sorry. It automatically, down here, put that's an outdoor activity because it saw camp out. It's easy to set the dates. Just click on the start and end date. You can set the dates and times. And there, it automatically put all of our scouts on the invite list, the invitee list. It's easy to edit that. You see I clicked invitees, and now it pulls up this new window. I could select all parents, I'm sorry, all leaders in this case. And once I've done that, it now adds all of our leaders to the invite list. I could do the same thing with parents. Because it's a camp out, we'll want RSVPs. So you want to click the button to turn on the RSVP function. Give you an idea. The RSVP function automatically puts these question marks on everyone that's an invitee. And they could go in there, and then, as you saw, they could click on their picture, their name, and click yes, no, or maybe. If it's a no, it changes to an X. If it's a yes, it changes to a check mark. There you see it. If it's an activity that requires permission slips, easy to do that. Again, you just slide the bar to do that. And then when someone RSVPs, it will automatically generate a permission slip personalized for them. Or as a leader that's setting up the event, you could print all the permission slips for everyone. It can be a useful feature. Down towards the bottom of the screen, well, let's talk about reminders. You could schedule your reminder emails to go out when you're creating it, hours before, days before. Again, very helpful, because once you've set those, it'll automatically send an email out. You won't have anyone saying, oh, I forgot to send a notice out to everyone. If you're doing advancement, you can click on the Manage Advancement and choose whatever you may be working on during that camp out, whether it's merit badge, rank, or something else. And then at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the message. That's when you send an email out, that's your message in the email. After you're done completing as much as you need to complete, you save it. Oops, here I forgot to enter the name of the event. I entered it was a camp out, but I didn't call it anything. So it gave me an error message, wouldn't let me save it. I'll go back and I'll fix that error just to put it as a test outing. And now it'll let me save it. So there's definitely some safeguards built in so you can't mess up too badly. So once you've done that, you could go back, you could edit the event. And if you do it with the feature assistant active, I don't have it active right there, but I did refresh my screen and it turned on the feature assistant. And now you see it gives, you can send messages to the invitees. And it, well, let's look. I'm sorry. You can message the invitees depending on their responses. So if you want to send someone to everyone that's going, you could do that, and not everyone will get the message. If you want to send a reminder message to those that have not given an RSVP, you could do that too. That's again from Feature Assistant. And then the RSVP report that I had talked about earlier, it takes a couple seconds to generate it. That would be your roster when you go camping or when you go to a council event that you need to turn in a roster for, or a district event where you need to give them a roster. There you have it. Health form dates, if you've completed it, we have some that we have not completed those for. You could run the roster as yes, no, or maybe. So you could select it. But that's pretty much, actually, one other feature on the calendaring. You could subscribe to calendars. You could add these calendars to your Google Calendar. If you see right here, that subscribe button, if you click on that, it will pull up a link, and then you could add the Scoutbook to Google Calendar or to Outlook or whatever calendaring program you may use. That's really helpful too, especially if you're trying to coordinate events that you may have outside of Scouting. So that is the scheduling events kind of module for Scoutbook. Charity, were there any questions?
Nope.
Okay, awesome.
And you got about 7 minutes before 11.
Okay. And then the final thing I had was, the basic thing was troop communications. Again, starting from this main screen. You scroll down to send a message. It pulls up another screen. Here, because I'm in 2 units, I have a choice. I'm already logged into the troop, so it pulled up those individuals. If you want to send it to everyone, just click that select all button at the top there. Note that we have one adult that said he doesn't want to get emails because his wife does. And that's something that each parent could select. If they want to opt out, they could do that. You could attach files to messages. Maybe it's a permission slip, or it's a registration form or a waiver, depending on where you're going. You could, in there, insert reminders about upcoming events. That'll automatically add beneath your message. So this is what an email looks like. Again, if you would select all youth members, which is on the right there, like I did right there, it automatically sends it to the parents that are listed under their names. That's a youth protection thing. Very helpful. Here's how you could send a text. Unfortunately, the texts are limited to, I believe it's 160 characters. So when I send a text, it's usually something like, check your email. but you can do it that way. And at least that's one reminder that there's an email that they need to check, especially with the Scouts, that a lot of our youth don't check their emails like they do their texts. So that is the troop communications. Pretty easy. One other thing about communications, the system that they have is a little antiquated, but you can use some formatting in text messages. It uses what they call BB code, bulletin board code. If you want to underline something, highlight it, or make it italics, you turn on a switch and turn off a switch. For example, for bold, you would do bracket, lowercase b, close bracket, then whatever text you want to be bold, and then bracket, / lowercase b, close bracket to turn that switch off. I could tell you I've had a few instances where I've forgotten to turn the switch off and my entire message is bold or underlined. So again, I think that's sort of ancient, but it's a feature there and I like to use it when I can. But you need to be a little bit careful and attentive when you do it. So we have a couple more minutes. I just want to run through maybe a couple of other more esoteric or advanced things on Scoutbook. First of all, if you need to get merit badge counselor, if you don't have one in your troop that counsels for a merit badge, this feature from the main screen, just scroll down and I'll just let the video run, will allow you or allow a leader to search for merit badge counselors within a certain geographic area. You may want to be careful though, because if you search for a common badge, you may end up with hundreds on the list. But if you're looking for a merit badge counselor in sort of a rare thing, where you may not have it in your troop, that's an excellent tool. And then finally, well, not finally, connections and permissions. Those are two things that are really critical in Scoutbook. Let me just first say that I wouldn't fool with them too much or at all really, because they're preset and they're very helpful. Connections are things that connect a Scout to either a parent or an adult. That determines who could see the Scout's information and who could update it. So there's two places to see that. The first place, and that's individual on a Scout by Scout basis. The first place is on the Scout's individual page, which we saw earlier under the advancements. At the bottom, there's a connections manager or connections link. This is from Evan's page. You see where it says Evan's connections. If you click on that, you'll see all of his connections. Also from the main roster page at the very bottom, there's also connections manager there. Again, I wouldn't fool with it too much. It's pretty much automatic. When a Scout adds a merit badge, they're usually invited to add a merit badge counselor. That will be an additional connection. But again, it's, for the most part, automatic and not something you need to worry about. Permissions. And again, the warning here is I would not fool with it at all, except in rare cases. Permissions determine, as you see here, who could see data, enter data, or manipulate data. A parent may be able to enter data, but they can't approve it. And one parent may not be able to see the data, meaning advancement information or personal information of another Scout. So there's protections in there for youth protection purposes. Generally, it's the key 3 that can manipulate data, although it is possible to adjust permissions to add people or increase their level of permission. So we have one person that we needed to give them full permission to control everything. And we did that through the roster page and the permissions on that page. But generally, it's a pretty advanced in terms of Scoutbook and this breakout session. It's a pretty advanced topic and I wouldn't fool with it, but I just wanted to let you know that it's out there. So that is all I had for today. and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. If not, I want to thank everyone for coming. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of this.
Thanks, Chuck. Anyone that's on this call, you guys can unmute and ask questions if you'd like.
Okay.
So August says, thank you. It's been very helpful for them. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to maybe doing this again at some point. And good luck with Scoutbook, everyone.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. Have a great scouting day.